Hello, everyone, and welcome back to ABG Investor Days. My name is Adrian Gilani, and I'm an equity analyst here at ABG, and I will be moderating this upcoming presentation, which will be given by CEO at Rottneros, Mr. Lennart Eberle. He will hold a roughly 20-minute presentation, and then we should have some time for Q&A after that. So with that being said, Lennart, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Adrian, and good morning to all of you. It's a pleasure to be here again. A lovely day in May, the sun is shining, the winter is behind us, and all forest owners are now out and planting trees. As you know, we plant 2 to 3 trees for each tree that we've taken out during the winter time. And that guarantees that the Swedish and Nordic forests are continuously growing, which is the basis for our business, of course. Rottneros is a player in the Nordic forest industry and has been that for many decades. Around about 350,000 tons of pulp with some 290 employees, and last year a turnover of 2.8 billion Swedish, roughly 250 million euros. This makes us one of the smaller players in this industry, but we have a very strong dedication and focus on specialty pulps, which create unique properties for our clients. And if we look into where we are, I hope this slide rectifies itself in the meanwhile. We are in the mid of Sweden. We have 2 pulp mills. One is on the western border, close to the Norwegian border, where we make mechanical pulp in Rottneros mill. And we have the Vallvik mill, which makes chemical pulp 2 hours north of Stockholm on the east coast, where we also have a deep sea harbor. So we can go straight from the mill to North America or to the big container harbors in Europe to ship out to Asia. We also have forestry operations within Nykvist Skog, which is in Värmland, as well as a strategic position in the Baltics, in Letland, where we do have some sourcing operations to make sure that we always have a continuous flow of raw materials. Since a couple of years, we're also focusing on further utilizing our pulp into making molded pulp within Rottneros packaging, and also developing this into a larger operation in Poland, which I'll be coming back to at a later stage. But why should you be investing in Rottneros? Well, the entire forest industry is part of the green transition. We do make products out of renewable materials, such as the fibers from the forest, and can replace fossil-based products. We have demonstrated a very long-term profitability. We are in the process of broadening our revenue base and also working on increasing our volumes of pulp. We have a robust balance sheet. We'll have a look at that later on. We're working responsible with our capital allocation in order to be able to be sustainable also in more distressed periods. The pulp market is a cyclical market, and the profits are going up and down. We create stable shareholder return. Last year, we had a total share return of 11%, and we have strong market positions, which really helps us out when the market is getting a little bit softer. But right now, the market is turning into a very positive trend. Prices are heading north, and this, of course, helps us. If we look at the split of sales that we're having, as I've said initially, we are a specialty producer of pulps that are utilized in packaging, filter grades such as coffee filters, filters for combustion engines, oil filters, as well as electrotechnical applications. So if you see a transformator, it contains fiber as an insulating for the power and the outer metal surrounding. So 3/4 of our sales are going in very dedicated specialty areas. Then we do have special applications such as greaseproof, and only a small share of our sales goes into the bulky areas such as tissue, which of course has a strong growth underneath, and also printing and writing is becoming less and less. The last 2 segments are those which are traditionally the ones where most of the market pulp goes into. And the global market pulp size is some 70 million tons. Out of that, we make 350, so we are really a small niche player. and the majority of all market pulp is today eucalyptus from South America. So it's hardwood and not the kind of softwood long fibers that we make. So that's a little bit of a speciality that creates strength in the products that our customers make. As I've mentioned, it's a cyclical market, and we've seen ups and downs in this market before. Last year was characterized by falling prices. We had the last high peak of prices in the autumn of 2022. Then they have come down in the beginning of 23 during the summer and turned around. And now we're heading back to high levels. And this trend, this is the monthly average, continues into April. The stocks, which are the bars, have come down, which signals a balanced market. It's in favor of the sellers rather than the buyers, and this helps creating a good price momentum upwards. Also, the entire supply chain is a bit under stress, given that logistics into Asia have increased in time, as we cannot go through the Suez Canal anymore, but we have to go around Africa, and that increases transit time and shipping and puts a strain on that. But all in all, we see an underlying trend. Of course, the upper line is the gross price, and from the gross price, we do have to detract the rebate, which is increasing, and you can see the increase of the rebate as the difference between the upper line, the gross price, and the lower line, which is the net price, is increasing year by year. But also net prices are moving up lovely and in a very good way. I talked about that the majority of pulp is coming from Latin America and Asia, and this will continue. It's a bit of a crowded picture, but if we focus on the dark blue ones, which I've circled, that is softwood, which we make in Canada, North America, as well in Scandinavia. You see that most of the happenings is that capacity has been taken out. There is a fiber shortage in Canada, there are increased transportation costs, and that has led to a couple of mills that has been closed. So the latest capacity addition is the Metsäkemi mill in the northern part of Finland, and then going forward, there are no plans for additional softwood capacity. The capacity that will come is on the hardwood, that's the lighter bars, especially in Latin America, and that's the majority of pulp. So short fibers, quite a big volume, creating a cheap pulp. Eucalyptus is ready after 7 years to be harvested, whereas the softwood takes up to 30 years for the first thinning, and then up to 80 years for the final cuttings. Of course, that's increasing the cost for the fiber. And therefore, we have to focus on niches where our customers really can utilize the quality that we produce and are paying for it. So over 3 million tons have been taken out of the softwood market. That's around about 18% of capacity over the last 3 years. Out of these 70 million tons of the market pulp, 18 used to be softwood, and it is gradually increasing. And the Nordic producers are put under pressure, especially in Finland, as the inputs from Russia has stopped due to the war in Ukraine. So 10% of the Finnish imports of fiber from Russia are gone, and that is, of course, putting a lot of stress on Finnish producers. So we have to see what's happening going forward, but all in all, not a lot of capacity plans and certainly no confirmed plans. So the market balance for softwood remains tight going forward, and I think the sort of delta between the short fiber price and the long fiber price will increase over time going forward. Looking at the Rottneros results, we had extremely good deliveries during the first quarter. Unfortunately, we had severe production problems that held back our production volumes, mainly due to the very harsh winter. It was 1 out of 10 years where it was extremely cold with up to minus 30 degrees, also in mid-Sweden. That is impacting the quality of the raw materials, a lot of fines that we have to take care of in the production. So 6% lower production quarter over quarter, still a positive result, but certainly nothing we are happy about, and we're focusing on rectifying that. We have a strong demand. We've seen that since the end of last year into the beginning of this year and going forward. and on the basis of that, we could have very good deliveries as well as rising prices. And the shareholder meeting that was held already in March this year agreed on a 50 dividend, which already has been paid out. So if you follow then on the balance sheet in a couple of seconds, you see that on the cash side, that has been taken in Q1 of this year. Looking at the results more in detail, we're comparing ourselves with a very strong Q1 2023. Remember the price curve, it was still on a very high level in the beginning of last year, delivering 150 million. And then the pricing that has come down during the course of those 12 months into Q1 24 has a severe impact on the result. But also the variable cost, the third part here on the negative bars, is continued to grow. And the majority of the variable cost is the fiber cost, so we are still in an upward trend of wood costs going up. They're not accelerating at the same speed as they've done during 22 and 23, but still successively going up as there is a strong competition around the raw material. It's a fantastic raw material, it's renewable, it's growing, there's more forest now than ever before, but there are certain limits to how much we can harvest in order to maintain the forests to be sustainable as well going forward. Very nice also the point here close to the right side, 20 million in other income. We have a target to be more diversified. We want to be a little bit less of a pure pulp player, and this is testimony of that strategy, and it starts paying results. I talked about the balance sheet. It's still very efficient and solid. We have a equity over assets ratio over 60%. As I've said, this gives us the security to work also in times when the market is a bit weaker. You see the cash generation. We have an available liquidity of over 400 million at the end of Q1. We already have invested 82. We are in quite a strong investment program going forward. I'm coming back on that. And as I've said, the dividend has already been paid out during Q1, so that will be not reoccurring going forward. So looking ahead and what we believe will happen in the pulp market, there are a couple of mega trends, of course, that will demand more pulp going forward. Tissue is an area which grows as the total population in the world is increasing. There's more disposable income at hand. People want to have a better life quality and thus consume more household and tissue paper. The majority of the raw material for that is eucalyptus, so this amount of eucalyptus volumes that you've seen in the other graph will be consumed by a growing tissue market. E-commerce, packaging grades are growing, more people consuming more things, needs to be shipped in a box, in a bag. Whatever we buy has to be brought home, and fiber-based packaging are the most sustainable solutions, and that continues to grow. And we already see here now, again, after 2 years of depressed prices, that price increases for all kinds of carton board and paper products are announced, and I think we see that certainly the confidence of consumers is coming back. Renewable energy demands more transformators, demands more cables. The electrotechnical grades that we're having are uniquely optimized to these applications. We're one of very few suppliers of the non-conductive pulp that makes sort of insulation paper in cables as well as in the transformators. And more of that is obviously going to come as we have to get out of fossil energy sources, more wind power, more solar power, and sustainable as an overall riding theme that demands more renewable products. I talked about the investments that are going on. The mechanical pulp in Rottneros. 2 years ago, we closed the groundwood line, and now we're in the phase of increasing the CTMP. Groundwood was used for newsprint. Newsprint is a quality that is not consumed that much, whereas this quality is for packaging grades. Juice cartons, milk cartons use a lot of mechanical pulps inside to give stiffness and rigidity to the packaging. And by autumn, we will go from 120 to 165,000 tons. This project is online. Most of the things have been made, and the heavy equipment will be put in place in the autumn stop. We're investing in solar energy. We will have a 2 gigawatt hours per year park in Rottneros. We're a big consumer of energy from the grid. We want to take our share of making the energy more renewable, and we're also investing in a battery storage of 8 megawatt hours. The Swedish grid, as all grids, has to be kept at a certain level, a frequency of 50 hertz, and if it varies from that, you have to either add capacity to produce more or withdraw capacity consumption of energy to keep it back to the balance. And battery is a very quick possibility to adjust, and here's a lot of money to be earned from the Swedish net operator, because they have to keep it at the 50 hertz, and they are having daily auctions to make sure that you can switch on or switch off. So it's a very short payback, and there are a lot of batteries in the making now to support the grid development, which is also a consequence of more solar and more wind power in the system. And in Vallvik, we are investing in a tall oil plant, some 90 million into that. Tall oil is a rest product of the chemical process. The fiber, or the wood we take in, is 50% fibers, 30% lignin, and then tall oil and some other things, hemicelluloses. And we take it out in the chemical process, and it's a raw material that then can be refined into oils as being renewable oil within other usages. So it's a standard part of a chemical process, nothing new, but the one we had to be renewed, and this will also increase our capacity of tall oil and make a Vallvik mill more efficient. But we're also talking about the packaging investments we are doing. We have developed our technology within molded fiber-based packaging. We are the first one to have a packaging with a modified atmosphere, so the food that you put into it can be put into a cold chain and not a frozen chain, with up to 3 weeks of shelf life. We are now ramping this up and installing more capacity in Poland. This is underway. It's a bit slower than we thought. We are using a couple of various technological suppliers. All of them have still problems with delivery times, but it's on its way, and by the end of this year we will see that the first machines in Poland will be started up. And we're also investing in a small startup company that makes bottle capsules instead of plastic out of fibers. So they're pressing the fiber into a very hard capsule that you can screw on a Coca-Cola bottle or a water bottle, which is interesting. And it's a complementary technology. The technology we have is wet-based, using a lot of water, adding certain properties to the product, but there are also ways of doing this in a dry format, which is more energy efficient, but has other limitations. So both technologies will be needed going forward, and it's an exciting technology as we see it. So if we summarize it, we continue to have a strong balance sheet, and it's my and the board's first priority to make sure that that remains intact. We do have a strong market balance. Prices are on the rise. There has been a lot of softwood capacity that has been taken out, and there is a consumer confidence coming back. Stocks globally are on a low level, so there will be restocking that will lead to continued upwards pricing. We do focus on the problems that we have. We are not happy with what happened in the first quarter, and we put a lot of dedication and focus on making sure that we are coming out of the second quarter much better, and we're also adding capacity, and we're diversifying our business portfolio to be a little bit more broad in what we do and also have growth within the portfolio going forward. And with that, I leave the word over back to Adrian.
Perfect. Thank you for that presentation. I'll go straight ahead with a couple of questions. You talked a bit about the market situation currently, what's causing the high pulp prices. Talked a lot about tight supply situation at the moment, but how would you characterize the demand situation on the market right now, and what is the outlook for what will drive demand in the future as well?
Europe, which is our biggest market with some 67%, and North America, I think we see that the market is coming back for paper and board. As I've said, there are a lot of pricing announcements out there. Also, downstream in the value chain, destocking has taken place during last year. And now we see that as consumer confidence comes back, anything that starts to lead to an increased demand directly will lead to an increased demand for paperboard and ultimately pulp. So I think there is an underlying positive momentum. China, which is the biggest market for market pulp, some 40% of all pulp goes into China, still is a bit sluggish. We have to wait and see what's happening there. But sooner or later, I believe also people in China will wake up again and start consuming.
Sounds good. And on the one hand, you have the tailwind from the higher prices, but you also mentioned there's some pressure on input costs coming up. How do you sort of work to handle rising input costs?
Well, primarily, of course, we make sure that we do have sufficient raw material, and we do have very long-standing relations to both the sawmills as well as forest owners who supply logs into operations. We feel that we are competitive when it comes to sourcing. We do have the volumes we need. And it's always a question of keeping the right margin between your input cost and your sales cost. And having the strategy of going into specialized niches where our customers maybe are prepared to pay a little premium, we feel that we can be in this game for a long time.
And on the sourcing part, specifically on the energy side, you mentioned taking the energy production in-house. What's the sort of strategic rationale for taking energy production in-house rather than buying from the grid?
Well, it's a very small part of the energy production that we take in-house. We do consume some 220 gigawatt hours. This is 1%. It's a step in that direction, making sure that we utilize the area that we have. Also utilizing the connecting points into the grid that we have, as we have industrial sites consuming a lot of energy. And with the state of the Swedish grid, that is a bottleneck. So here we have an opportunity actually to add on renewable energy without causing problems for the grid. And I think overall that is positive.
I understand. And another sort of strategic question regarding the ownership you have in Nyquist Skog. Again, what's the strategic rationale for the ownership stake in Nyquist?
Well, it's a 100% acquisition that we've done back in 2020. At the time, we were still using logs for the production of ground wood pulp that we do not have anymore. But the rationale is that the mechanical pulp we make is based on sawmill chips. So if you think of a big log that goes into a sawmill, 50% roughly becomes sawn products that we can use to build our patios. 50% becomes chips. The chips then are utilized in the pulp industry to make fibers, paper, and board. So this is how the whole forest industry is linked together. And in order to get those chips, we can trade the sawmill timber that we get through Nyquist. So we have a strengthened relation with the sawmill suppliers that we're having. And it's also helping us in our pulpwood relations with Sveaskog and Mellanskog, which is a big forest owners association. So all in all, it has certainly strengthened our position in the local raw material market. And I think it certainly has paid off. We never had to stop due to the lack of fibers during the last years. And the competition on raw materials certainly has strengthened.
And with that in mind, was that a one-time thing, or could more acquisitions be in the cards as well, looking forward?
They're always in the cards. We have to see when they come up and what the price of a potential acquisition is, of course.
Okay. A final question from my end regarding your sort of transition to not just be a pure play pulp provider. Within those other income streams that you showed, is there any aspect within that is particularly exciting that you would want to lift forward, and how big can that become if we look, 4 or 5 years out, perhaps?
I would say the most exciting part of that is our packaging initiative. Here we have basically unlimited growth potential. We have to make sure that the technology works. We have a strong demand from the market, so it's much more a supply question rather than a market question. And then as we have to see how we can finance future growth in that way forward with other joint ventures, for example, or licensing out our technology, I think there is a great upside.
Okay, and with that being said, we are unfortunately out of time, so I'd like to thank everyone for participating, and thank you to Lennart as well.
Thank you very much.